Good people, welcome back. We're going to proceed from where we stopped last time. We did talk of Python functions, and for today we're going to proceed from parameters. So what's a parameter? Yeah. So parameter is a function input specified in a function. So a parameter is a function input of a function specified function definition. So parameters are normally entered after the name of the function. Okay, let's proceed. So, for example, when you're doing a pizza array function, right? You can have diameter as an input. So basically, it's a parameter is a function input specified in a function definition. Hope that makes sense. Okay, we'll get more about that as we go along. Just a little bit. What's an argument? Argument is a value. Argument value provided to a function's parameter. So these two if you remember, we said so we have a parameter, right? Once the parameter has been defined, we're gonna have an argument being the value of a parameter, right? So if we said we have a function, we said our function, we do a definition of a function, we call def, right? This is how we create a function. Let's say pizza underscore array, right? So if we pass here 12.0, this is an argument, right? It's an argument. It's the value. I hope that makes sense. This is a function that has an argument. Then we normally have a full colon after that. This is just an example. To proceed on that, I will do examples in a short while. Let's just finish on the explanation, then we can start on that. Now, so basically, a parameter is like a variable definition. This is what a parameter is like. We remember the variables we've been writing before, right? So basically, a parameter is like a variable definition. It's like you're defining a variable in a function. That's when a parameter comes in. Hope that's clear. So upon entering the function, the parameter is bound to the argument object provided by the call. What do we mean by that? Okay, once you've entered the function, right? This being the function. The parameter is bound by the argument. This is the argument. So the parameter is bound by the argument object provided by the call. Creating a shared reference to the object. Upon return, the parameter can no longer be used. So let's have that in mind. Upon return, parameter can no longer be used. So once we have a return, the parameter can no longer be used. We can do an example. Let's see let's see a sample. Let me get this. So we'll let's do an example. Let's say we want to still do the pizza area. So let's do it. Okay, I'll write the example and then we'll copy and have it in our function too. So basically this is what we are doing. We are doing parameters and arguments. Now let's proceed. So we've said function are created using a def keyword. So def, say calc underscore pizza underscore area. Right? Now what we pass here is a parameter. So a parameter, let's say we want to use diameter. I'll use it. Okay, let's use diameter. Full column. Yeah. Here is the indentation which is normally used in creating our function. So we will say radius equals to diameter. Now we did say a parameter is like a variable definition. So basically it's like we defined a variable right here. So it's like diameter divided by 2, right? 2.0 divided by 2.0. Yeah. Slash is a division in Python. So we'll say area is equals to math.py. We have done math. We've imported math here. But the math.py. So it's like pi times radius times radius and radius and radius. Does that make sense? That's the area. So we normally have a function has a return statement, as we've said. So we return our area, right? Does that make sense? Now let's make use of our function. Then we see how arguments play a role. Now we want to print. Excuse me. We have the F for the formatting of strings. Now let's use 12.0 inch is we pass the function here. We call the function. We don't pass. We call the function. So our function is called calc underscore pizza underscore area. Yeah. So that's our function, right? This is how we call the function. But we want to pass an argument. So we can say 12.0. Yeah. 12.0. Right? This is how we can pass our function. We want to have it in a 3 decimal point. So we say 3 and next it you can add any other text there like square feet, square inches, whichever. Now if we want to have another argument, yeah. So we want to have a 16 inch. So this guy will have so this is an argument. These are arguments, right? So we have an parameter here and we have arguments here. So we've said arguments, the value, this value here, this is an argument. Then we've said parameter, it's like a variable definition. And then we said upon return, the parameter can no longer be used. This is the parameter, right? So from the return, it cannot be used anymore. Let's run this in our function too. So when we run this, I just copied what we had. Let's clear this. Let's do Python function 2. Yeah. So basically, this is pi r square. Pi r square. Hope that makes sense for our Python functions, parameters, and arguments. I hope you've seen how that plays role. We just are getting started. We'll do more and more of those examples as we go along. Let's do that's a single parameter. Let's do another sample here. So we can say example 2. So here we can say if we want to, let's see, let's just do a function. Let's say get underscore letter underscore grade. How would we pass a parameter here? We would say let's say we want to pass a parameter as num underscore grade. Okay. How does that make sense? Here's how you pass. That's how you pass a parameter. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. I hope you have understood that. Let's see how this is a single parameter. We just passed the diameter. Let's talk about multiple row parameters. Yeah, you can either have 2, 3, or you can either have no parameters. So what happens here? If you have multiple parameters are separated by a comma. Yeah. So if you have multiple parameters, you separate them with a comma. So parameters. Let's talk about parameters are assigned with argument values. We've seen from our example. Here that this is a parameter has a value. So parameters are assigned with argument value. So that should be there. Once we have parameters, we have arguments coming next. Excuse me. So basically what happens is first parameter goes with the first argument. Second with second. We have a third will be third parameter. The third argument. I hope that makes sense. So that in here we had a single parameter, so that's why we just had one. Okay, we'll see that when we have multiple parameters. Now, if a function do not have the function do not have a parameter, what happens? So now this is where the no parameter comes in. The no parameters comes in. If a function do not have a parameter, it must still have. I hope we've seen this from our. Excuse me. So if a function does not have parameter, if a function does not have parameter, it must have parentheses. Our good example here is our first the first function we did execute. This one do not have a parameter, but it has parentheses, right? So this is what we just now this is a good example of no parameters. It has a parenthesis, one parameter, one parameter here, one parameter. Now we're talking about multiple parameters, 1, 2, 3, and we've said that first parameter goes with the first argument. That's where the arguments comes in. So once you start having parameters, you have arguments as well. Now let's do an example where our function here has more. So let's do an example. So this is our initial example we did of pizza area. Let's say you want to add height. How do we go about it? So we go to say height, right? Now we have two parameters, diameter and height. So our arguments should also incorporate that, which means from either we can now do our volume. Now we'll say volume is equals to area. Yeah, you found area already. So we'll say area multiplied by the height. So basically, and we've agreed that basically parameters are like variable definitions. It's like to define a variable. That's how we use it here. Yeah. So basically, volume is area multiplied by the height. Area, which is found here, divided by the height. Which means we're supposed to use height in our when you're doing a print. So we return area. Now let's return volume, right? Return volume. So which means when you're doing volume, you're going to say the area multiplied by the height, right? So we're going to have two arguments. Right now we have let's just define this to calculate the volume. Volume will be area multiplied by okay, let's see if this will return the exact volume using the pi. Fine. Now, so let's do a print using the arguments. So we'll say pizza volume. Now it's not area, it's volume. So it's vol as our function. So now we call it the function. We'll pass the height. We'll pass the diameter. Use a comma. Sorry, use a comma. Then we pass the height. Right? Then this will be in cubic inches. Same thing to a 16 when the diameter is 16 and the height is 0.8. We can do another one of when the let's say we have 16 and 8, we can have another 12 and 8. So we'll say 12. Remember this is a parameter argument, parameter argument, parameter argument, parameter argument, parameter and argument, parameter and argument. So basically they are comma separated, same case to here. Now let's try this one. See, we will be going to have a volume. So we could say go to function 3. Now we go to say we're gonna say volume. Oh, right. So I'm going to paste our function here. The reason why we have an error is because we did not copy the import pi. So our error has gone. So right here we are supposed to say calculate error volume. Just same. We call it the function we have calculate volume. Right. So right now we have no errors. So let's try and run our function. Function 3. Yeah. So basically Are we going to have 12 inch, I think 33.929, the 16 inch, and these are the arguments being passed. So 16 and 8, we have 160.850, and then if it's 12 inch, which is 12 diameter and height being 8, we're going to have 90.478. So this is how you can calculate the volume of it. Now let's do a little bit of division here. So here we're going to say multiple parameters. We have our parameters being diameter, height. So here we say, let's define radius. Volume is here. Our return statement here is a function has a return statement. Then we now pass the arguments here. So say pass the arguments here. I hope that makes sense. We've passed the arguments. We've said the arguments are the values. This is like it's like variable definition. That makes sense. From what we have covered right here, we can do another example. Let's do, maybe that was longer. Let's do another example. So let's say you want to do addition of numbers, right? So we'll say definition, how we define a function. Then we say the name of our function is called add, right? We want to pass two parameters. So we say A, we want to add A and B, right? Colon, indentation, then we say return A plus B. This is a simple function. So we'll say result is equals to, we call the function, then we now pass the arguments right here. So we want to add 5 and 3. How that makes sense? So you can just start with result. How this makes more sense. So we have parameters here. Let's do it in our function. So let's use this as an example. So right here we have parameters. Then right here we have pass variables. Right here we have the return statement. So basically this gets us to let's see the result. Now we'll do Python function form. Yeah. 5 and 3 is 8. Let's do result on 5 and 5. Result. So with this we should get 10. Yeah, I hope we've seen how we pass multiple parameters. This should give us 8 and 10 because we're passing the first parameter. We've just assigned the result to this variable. So we've just passed the arguments here, first argument, second argument. So we have 8 and 10. How that makes sense? we've seen how we pass a single no parameters, single parameter, and double parameters, double, two or more parameters. So that we just head to right here. How that makes sense to this far of basically getting to know parameters, no parameter, single parameter, two or more parameters. So okay, in functions we have something called when we call functions, so we can call it functions. Functions in a hierarchy manner. In a hierarchy manner. In a hierarchy. Yeah. So basically, we have functions being called in an order. Now let's get to this in our next class, so that this does not become too long. I just want you to get to know I just want you to understand the parameters in functions. Yeah. So basically, we're talking about parameters and arguments. No parameter, single parameter, double parameters or more. Now that makes sense. See you in the next one, good people, and let's enjoy learning Python. See you.